stocks on Wall Street and Friday's session mix. The Dow falls more than 300 points while the Nasdaq gains 30 points as tech stocks recover some ground. Asian market open mix as investors pass Japan's latest GDP data. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a positive start for the Indian market. Crude oil prices slip as operations resume at Russian port, easing some supply concerns following the Ukrainian strike late last week. Gold prices slip over 3% as hawkish Fed comment spark market sell-off. And in CNBC TV 18 exclusive, Kotak Mahindra Bank top brass talks about loan book growth and unlocking value. CEO and MD says the aim is to become the third largest, most profitable private sector financial group in the country. While Uday Kotak welcomes foreign investments in the Indian banking sector, separately the bank's board will meet this week to consider a stock split. The last time the bank undertook a stock split was 15 years ago. Hello, good morning. You all have tuned into CNBC TV 18. I'm Vinay Motiwala and you're watching Power Breakfast with me. Let's look at how the Asian markets have opened up, given that the US markets, they closed a bit mixed, right? So we're talking about the Asian markets right now, whether you look at the Taiwan index or the Hang Seng. Let's pull that up. Taiwan index as well as a Hang Seng right now is seeing a bit of a cut in terms of the Hang Seng. That's down around 2/10 to 0.3%. Most of the Asian markets right now have opened up a bit lower in today's trading session. So whether you look at the ASX 200, that's down almost 0.2%. Nikkei, that's the Japanese index, that's down 0.3%. And Shanghai also is opening with cuts of almost 0.4%. Taiwan index, that's the one that's managing to hold on to gains of almost 0.6%. So we have a bit of a mixed opening that we're keeping an eye out on in the Asian markets. Now, let's pull the Nifty implied open. What's the indication that we have coming in there? That's also indicating a slight bit of a positive start for the Indian market. So we're watching out for a 60-point uptick for the Nifty. So keep an eye out on that. A mixed opening for the Asian markets. But a lot that happened in the global markets, the last leg of few earnings that came in as well. So to set you up for trade, tell you which are the important stocks to watch out for, what's happening in the world of F&O. We have a team of research joining in with us for that. First up, let's go across to Vivek, who's joining us to tell us all the important market cues that we are keeping an eye out on today. Good morning, Vivek.
Well, good morning. Quite a few things to track, but we've reached the last leg as far as the earnings season is concerned. So whole host of results that we were tracking largely comes to a close. Now, when you're talking about the kind of handover that we've seen, US market ended Friday's session on a slightly subdued note. Nasdaq, in fact, witnessed profit booking. Now, however, oil prices actually managed to jump over 2%. This on the back of the fact that a major Russian port actually halted the oil exports on the back of an attack that it witnessed. Indian markets last week managed to snap a 2-week losing streak. In fact, we actually saw the biggest weekly gains in over 5 months. Sensex, Nifty as well as the mid-cap index managed to gain over 2%. And remember, Bank Nifty and mid-cap index actually during the week managed to hit intraday high levels. Now, all of the sectoral indices managed to end with gains. And Friday, in fact, was the 5th straight session of gains, aided largely by a last hour rally that we saw. In terms of what to watch out for today's trading session, earnings reaction, quite a few numbers. Tata Motors passenger vehicles, very muted set. Sun TV, Max Healthcare, Glenmark Pharma, Siemens, Inox Wind will react to the Q2 announcements that have come out with. Also, remember, you saw a very large block deal as far as Sagility was concerned. Over 17% equity changed hands. And Asian markets largely mixed. GIFT Nifty, however, indicating a flat to mildly positive start for our markets today.
Okay, thanks so much for that. But let's move on and go across to Sudarshan, who's here to tell us which are the important cues in the world of F&O. Good morning, Sudarshan.
Good morning, Vinny. So the cues that we are getting from the F&O desk is indicating that FIs continue to build positions on the short side. As far as the global cues are concerned, it's not giving any direction. So the key question, will Nifty see profit booking at these levels or the levels around 26,000? That would be a key question. As far as GIFT Nifty is concerned, it's indicating a start with the gain of around 50 to 60 points as of now. Look at the flows. In the cash market, we saw FI selling almost rupees 5,000 crore, while DIS bought almost rupees 8,500 crore, but you'll have to factor in the block deal of Sagility. Now, in the index futures too, FIs have sold more than rupees 1,870 crore, and now their longs exposure has reduced to 11%. Look at the short side. They have built positions. They have added more than 9,500 contracts. Now, in the options data, 26,000 and 25,800 call. Both these call options have seen an increase in the open interest. At the same time, premium for both these options has fallen. Even for the put, 25,700 put, increase in the open interest, but here also premium has seen or has fallen as well. So support for Nifty 25,780, that's a 20-day moving average. Resistance remains around 26,100, that's the 52-week high. For Nifty Bank, support would be now 58,000 and resistance around 58,620. Here also the record high. One stock that remains in the band is SAIL. I'll keep an eye on Tata Motors passenger vehicle. It has reported a very weak set of earnings. Even for the outlook for Q3 for JLR remains weak as well. And Vodafone Idea is near FPO price. That FPO price was 11 rupees per share. So keep an eye on that stock as well.
Okay, Sudarshan, thank you so much for that. We'll be surely keeping an eye out on the important data points that have come in the world of F&O. But on that note, we're actually going to slip into a very short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back with some cues from the Wall Street. Stay tuned in. Welcome back to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now let's move on. And in the US market, Wall Street ended mixed on Friday, with Nasdaq ending its 3-day losing streak as investors stepped in to buy the battered technology stocks a day after Wall Street logged its worst session in more than a month. Let's go across to CNBC's Bertha Coombs, who's here to give us a wrap on what happened on Wall Street.
Dow fell 309 points. The S&P 500 was down 3, but the tech-heavy Nasdaq gained 30. Walmart announced that CEO Doug McMillon will retire in early 2026. McMillon has been the CEO of Walmart since 2014 and has guided the retail giant through its transition to online shopping. The stock is up nearly 312% over his term. He will be replaced by current Walmart U.S. President and CEO John Furner. And shares of Alibaba shed nearly 4% during the session after a report from the Financial Times that a White House memo says Alibaba is providing tech support for Chinese military targets against the U.S. The report says that Alibaba also provides the Chinese government with customer data, including IP addresses, Wi-Fi info, and payment records. Alibaba denied the report to CNBC, saying the information was provided by, quote, a rogue voice looking to undermine President Trump's recent trade deal with China. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back over to you in Mumbai.
Thank you so much for that. And let's move on. And amid the uncertainty over Fed's rate cut trajectory and the decision in the December policy, Allianz's chief economic advisor, Mohammad El-Erian, tells CNBC that the current Federal Reserve lacks a strategic view. Listen in.
This is a Fed that lacks a strategic view. It doesn't have clarity as to, are we on the cusp of a productivity boom that allows us to run monetary policy hotter than we would otherwise, or are we not? And that makes a huge difference. And for the marketplace, the narrative has changed from something very comforting, we're going to get cuts despite a solid economy, to now we may not get cuts despite a weakening labor market. So it's a huge change in the top-down narrative that amplifies the bottom up. And I am dying to see, Carl, whether we get the buying on dips that has been so reliable for so long.
And moving on, in a major policy reversal, President Donald Trump has rolled back tariffs on more than 200 food items. The move comes amid rising frustration from Americans over soaring grocery bills.
U.S. President Donald Trump has rolled back tariffs on more than 200 food products in the face of growing angst among American consumers about the high cost of groceries. The new exemptions were announced on Friday and include such staples as coffee, beef, bananas, and orange juice. They took effect retroactively at midnight on Thursday. The move marks a sharp reversal for Trump, who has long insisted that the sweeping import duties he imposed earlier this year are not fueling inflation. Trump was asked about the rollback aboard Air Force One on Friday evening.
Mr. President, you've said that fewer tariffs do not increase prices for consumers. but now you're a lower end.
I didn't say they don't. I say they may in some cases, but to a large extent, they've been borne by the country. As an example, we have virtually no inflation.
Trump also said he would move forward with a $2,000 payment to lower and middle income Americans that would be funded by tariff revenues.
Now we're going to do a dividend, and we're also going to be reducing debt.
Friday's list of exemptions includes products U.S. consumers routinely purchase to feed their families at home, many of which have seen double-digit year-over-year price increases. The White House said Trump decided certain food items could be exempted since they were not grown or processed in the United States. And after, quote, significant progress the president has made in securing more reciprocal terms for our bilateral trade relationships. Trump has focused squarely on the issue of affordability in recent weeks.
Our work to lower the cost of living,
while insisting that any higher costs were triggered by policies enacted by his predecessor Joe Biden and not his own tariff policies. Democrats have won a string of recent victories in state and local elections in Virginia, New Jersey, and New York City, where growing voter concerns about affordability, including high food prices, were a key topic.
Okay, that's an important update that's coming in there. But let's move on now to a CNBC TV 18 exclusive. We want to become the largest, third largest, most profitable private sector financial group in the country, says Kotak Mahindra Bank's MD and CEO Ashok Vaswani. Also rules out unlocking value in any business by way of listing. Listen in.
Speaking of that journey, and you just unveiled this One Kotak sort of campaign and One Kotak ambition that you've put out there as far as customers are concerned. How should investors read that from an unlock and a monetization perspective? Could we potentially look at some of your businesses being unlocked, being monetized in the near future, or is that not a consideration at this point in time?
So Shirin, think about it. Kotak is the broadest financial conglomerate in the country. There's nothing that's like the Kotak financial conglomerate. This conglomerate allows us to take advantage of whatever changes may be happening in the financial services sector, whether it's in saver to investor, whether it's corporates going from bank balance sheets to corporate bonds, capital markets. We can serve these customers across the group. That is the power of this group. This also allows us to identify customer segments that we want to really go after, bring together products and services relevant to them, and build out propositions. And where we've done that, we've got really, really good results, whether it's with the private bank, our recently launched Solitaire program, our 811 program, the SME segment, or institutional clients for that matter. That is the power of Kotak, of being able to bring together and meet the holistic needs of the customer. That embedded value is growing. Why would we monetize it early?
No, early, but at some point you will? Or intend to?
Right now, very early. We'll see what the future holds. But frankly, I honestly don't see the value of monetizing it right away.
At this point in time, I ask you this also in the context of what you're seeing happening around you. I mean, things like the Grow listing, an 8-year-old company listing in the manner in which it does that kind of tempt you to look at what's happening in the market?
Not at all. The embedded value of Kotak is growing at a compounded rate. And there really is no reason for us to kind of list at this point in time.
So no departure from that?
No departure.
Mr. Kotak, an overarching view on this aspect? Because I'm sure that this is something that you discuss and debate very often at the board level.
Shirin, I think the financial intermediation space is undergoing transformation. One is thanks to technology. Second is the move from saver to investor. Third is the flexibility across the intermediation space, which is expected by customers. And therefore, to create inherent disparities between different segments is inconsistent with the best way to serve customers. Therefore, think about yourself. You may be a saver and an investor in one. Therefore, as a financial intermediary, we cannot think about ourselves as a bank or asset management company or as a broker. We've got to think about wherever the intermediation moves, the group is there to serve you. And therefore, if that is the basis, the theme about One Kotak is an extremely powerful theme where the newcomers rightly start with a vertical, but ultimately the challenge is how do you serve your customer in totality?
Okay, that's a very interesting chat there. But on that note, we're actually going to submit a very short break. Up next, we'll get your cues in the world of commodities. Stay tuned in. Welcome back to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now let's get to the latest development in the Delhi car blast case that has happened there. The National Investigation Agency has arrested an accomplice of the alleged Delhi suicide bomber Umar Unnabi nearly a week after the blast that killed 13 people. The accused Amir Rashid Ali from Jammu and Kashmir was picked up from the national capital on Sunday. Investigators say Ali conspired with Umar Unnabi and helped plan the terror attack as the NIA now widens its probe into the deadly explosion. Okay, let's keep it going then and move on to what's happening in the world of commodities. For that, we have Manisha joining in with us this morning. Good morning, Manisha.
Morning, and thank you for that, Vinny. I'll start with the crude oil prices where we have seen a decline coming in. That comes in on the back of, one, you have the US dollar index, which is trading on the higher side. This is ahead of the US economic data, and there's a string of that expected in this week. The other thing really is about the supplies coming back. Remember, we've been talking about on how Russian refinery shutdown is caused by the Ukraine drone strikes. But also we understand that after 2 days of shutdown at the Russians' Novorossiysk port, that has resumed oil loading operations. So that supplies will be coming into the international markets as well. That's about the crude oil prices. In gold and silver, the markets are now working with a 46% probability of a rate cut by the U.S. Fed in the month of December. Now, that doesn't augur well for gold and silver. And then you also have seen the dollar index inch up. All of that seems to be weighing on to those precious metals as well. And same is the case with base metals. Not a very strong start in Asia right now.
Okay. Not a very strong start in Asia right now. We'll keep an eye out on those precious metals as well going forward. But, with that, we are going to take a quick look at what's happening on the Asian market front, right? We opened up quite in the red when you look at it. Most of the indices are in the red, right? When we started the show, Hang Seng was in the red. That still continues to be in the red, down 0.3%. Taiwan index, that's picked up some bit of pace. It was up 0.6%. It's now up 0.7%. So that's one index that's managing to hold on to the green side. And apart from that, whether you look at ASX 200, the Japanese index, that's a Nikkei, all of them are trading in the red. But Nifty implied open, that's indicating a green start right now for the Indian market, continues to hold to that 62-point uptick. But with that, we're absolutely out of time on this edition of Power Breakfast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Up next, our Bazaar Morning Call.